announce arrests in a cold case involving the murder of a pregnant woman.
So this all happened back in 2023. 26-year-old India Kinnamore was pregnant when she was shot on Hidden Meadows Drive. She and her unborn child were killed. Tonight, Colerain police announcing the arrests of 3 men for the murders. 20-year-old Robert Irvin, 30-year-old Kayvon Warren, and 22-year-old Lamar Suggs are all charged with 2 counts of murder.
It was March 4, 2023, a cold, quiet Saturday night in Colerain Township, Ohio. Inside a small apartment on Hidden Meadows Drive, 26-year-old India Kinnamore was getting ready for what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She was pregnant. She was due to be induced that morning. Her mother, Terry Kinnamore, had already picked out the baby clothes. Family members were planning to be at the hospital. Everyone was waiting to meet India's baby, but India never made it to the hospital. Around a.m., Terry got a call that would tear her world apart. Police said there had been a shooting. They told her to come quickly. When she arrived, the apartment was surrounded by flashing lights, yellow tape everywhere, officers moving in and out, and then Terry heard the words no mother wants to hear. "Ma'am, we're sorry. She didn't make it." Later, detectives told Terry what the cameras had captured. On the surveillance tape from the apartment, you could hear it. India screaming every time a shot went off. She was screaming for her life, Terry said, and for her baby's life too. Both were gone before help could even arrive. News spread fast. A 26-year-old pregnant woman killed inside her own home. People wanted answers. Who would do this? Why? At first, some thought it was a break-in, a robbery gone wrong. But detectives already suspected something darker, something personal. Colerain police called in every detective they had. They combed through the apartment, collected shell casings, pulled surveillance footage, checked phone records. Nothing about this looked random. One name kept coming up: Kayvon Warren, India's boyfriend, the father of her unborn child. Minutes later, police would discover this wasn't just a tragic killing. It was a carefully planned hit, and the man who should have been protecting India might have been the one who wanted her gone. If you want to know how police uncovered the shocking truth behind India's death, subscribe now so you don't miss the story. After India's death, police started digging into everyone close to her. One name stayed at the top of the list: Kayvon Warren. Kayvon was 30. He was India's boyfriend. He was the father of her unborn baby. To neighbors, they looked like a normal couple. No one thought anything like this could happen, but detectives found things people didn't see. India and Kayvon had problems, arguments, tension about the pregnancy, and when police checked phone records, Kayvon's name didn't just show up once. It showed up everywhere: calls, texts, location pings. The night of the murder, his phone told a story he couldn't explain. Then there was Lamar Suggs. He was 22, known to police for small crimes before this. Detectives believe he was the one who pulled the trigger. Surveillance video showed a man in dark clothes running from the apartment. Witnesses saw the same thing. Phone data placed Lamar close to the scene at the exact time India was killed. The third suspect was Robert Irvin, just 20 years old. At first, no one understood his role, but as police looked deeper, they saw he was in the middle of it all. Calls between Robert, Lamar, and Kayvon were constant before the murder. Detectives believed Robert helped plan it. He may have helped Lamar get in and out without being caught. Cell phone records became the key. Detectives mapped out every call, every text, every location ping. The pattern was clear. Kayvon talked to Lamar. Kayvon talked to Robert. Lamar and Robert talked to each other. All hours before the shooting. It wasn't random. It was a chain, and at the top of the chain was Kayvon. But why would the father of her child want her dead? The answer would shock everyone. As detectives worked the case, one thing kept haunting them: why would a man kill the woman carrying his own child? This was no random shooting. It was personal. It was cold. And when they dug into India and Kayvon's life, the pieces slowly came together.
Try being my size, Amy. You don't know how it is. There's stuff you can do. You want to be a big baby about everything. I ain't baby. You're the baby. Grow the up. You first.
India Kinamore was happy when she found out she was pregnant. She called her mom first. Terry Kinamore remembered the day clearly. She said, "Mom, I'm gonna have a baby." She was so excited, Terry told reporters later. India talked about baby names, baby clothes, everything. But people close to her knew things weren't perfect with Kayvon. Neighbors heard them argue sometimes. Friends said they had broken up before but kept getting back together. Still, no one thought it was serious enough to end in murder. When police interviewed Kayvon after the murder, something felt off. He cried at first, said he couldn't believe she was gone. But detectives noticed he didn't ask many questions about the baby. He didn't ask if the baby had survived. One officer later said, most fathers would ask about their child. He didn't. That made them dig deeper into his feelings about the pregnancy. Soon, prosecutors dropped a bombshell in court. Kayvon had allegedly asked India to end the pregnancy. He didn't want to be a father again. He already had other kids from previous relationships. One of India's friends told police she remembered India saying, "He doesn't want me to keep it, but I told him I'm having my baby." India wanted her child. She wasn't going to change her mind, and that, prosecutors said, made her a target. India had a hospital appointment scheduled for March 4, 2023. It was the day she was supposed to be induced. The baby was full-term, healthy, ready to come into the world. Her family had plans to meet her at the hospital that morning. Instead, they met police officers outside her apartment, surrounded by crime scene tape. Her mother later said, "I was supposed to hold my grandbaby that day. Instead, I had to plan a funeral." Detectives noticed something strange about the timing of the murder. Why did it happen just hours before the baby was supposed to be born? Prosecutors argued it was simple. Kayvon didn't want the baby here. Killing India before the induction ended the pregnancy. It was cold. Calculated? Police didn't rely on words alone. They wanted hard evidence. They pulled Kayvon's phone records, his text messages, his social media. What they found painted a dark picture. Calls between Kayvon and Lamar Suggs, the alleged shooter. Messages between Kayvon and Robert Irvin before and after the killing. Location data putting all three men in the same area that night. Every clue pointed to a plan, not a random act. Friends told investigators India had no idea what was coming. She was focused on the baby. She had packed her hospital bag. She was ready to become a mom. One neighbor said they saw her laughing on the phone the day before. She looked happy, they said. No one could have guessed what was about to happen. When Terry Kinamore learned prosecutors believed Kayvon wanted the pregnancy ended, she was furious. She loved that baby, Terry told the court. She was so ready to be a mother. Family members said India would have raised the child even if Kayvon walked away. She didn't need him, one cousin said, but she wanted her baby. By now, prosecutors had built a theory. Kayvon wanted out of the relationship, out of fatherhood. He thought killing India before the baby came would solve his problem, but he didn't plan on leaving evidence behind. Police later said this was one of the most disturbing cases they had seen. This wasn't heat of the moment, one detective said. This was planned. Calls were made. A shooter was found. A date was chosen. And all of it tied back to one man, Kayvon Warren. When news spread about the motive, people were shocked. Some couldn't believe a father would go this far. On social media, people posted messages like, "He could have just walked away. Why kill her and the baby? That poor girl. She thought she was going to be a mom that day." The story made headlines across Ohio. Detectives kept digging. They believed digital evidence, texts, calls, locations would prove this wasn't just murder. It was a plot. A plan made days, maybe weeks, before the shooting. And they were right. Investigators would soon find digital proof that turned this tragedy into a cold-blooded plot. Detectives knew feelings and suspicions wouldn't be enough to put three men on trial for murder. They needed facts, hard proof, something that would stand in front of a jury. So they went to work. The first clue came from cell towers. Every phone leaves a trail behind calls, texts, locations. Police pulled records for Kayvon Warren, Lamar Suggs, and Robert Irvin. What they saw confirmed their worst fears. On the night India Kinamore died, there were calls flying back and forth between all three men. At 11:42 p.m., Kayvon called Robert. At 12:10 a.m., Robert called Lamar. At 12:27 a.m., Kayvon spoke with Lamar directly. Minutes later, shots rang out inside India's apartment. The timing was too tight to ignore. Cell towers told part of the story, but detectives wanted more precision. They pulled location data from the suspects' smartphones. Modern phones ping GPS points even when no one's using them. On March 4th, all three suspects' devices showed them circling India's neighborhood in the hour before the shooting. One phone pinged right outside her apartment minutes before gunfire erupted. Another pinged less than a mile away while calls were happening between the men. Detectives drew a digital map. It showed three dots, three phones moving closer and closer until the moment India's life ended. Then came the most haunting piece of evidence. India's apartment complex had cameras with microphones. They didn't catch the shooter's face clearly, but they caught the sound: gunshots, screams. Terry Kinamore, India's mother, later said in court, "You can hear my baby screaming every time a bullet hit her." The audio matched the exact time stamps from the suspects' calls. Detectives laid everything out. Phone records showed the men talking right before the shooting. GPS data proved they were near India's home. Surveillance audio captured the murder as it happened. When police combined all of it, the picture was clear. This wasn't a random act. This was planned, coordinated, executed. One detective said later, "The data told the story the suspects wouldn't." Kayvon claimed he was shocked by India's death, but his phone betrayed him. He was calling the alleged shooter minutes before she died. He was texting the third man after the murder, asking questions that didn't sound like grief. They sounded like someone checking if the job was done. When prosecutors shared this evidence in court, people in the gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled notes as investigators described the chain of calls and movements. It was chilling to hear how carefully timed everything was. Besides the phone and location data, police had witness statements. Neighbors reported seeing two men in dark clothes near the apartment right before the shots. One neighbor heard someone running down the stairs after the gunfire. Another remembered a car speeding away. All of it matched the suspects' phone locations at the same times. Investigators knew defense lawyers would attack every piece of evidence. So they double-checked everything. Phone companies verified the call logs. Tech experts confirmed the GPS accuracy. Audio specialists matched the gunshots to the timeline. By the time they were done, detectives had built a digital wall of proof around Kayvon, Lamar, and Robert. For India's family, hearing this evidence was like living the nightmare again. Every call log, every audio clip reminded them of what happened inside that apartment. Terry said later, "It was like losing her twice, first the murder, then hearing exactly how they planned it." After seeing the evidence, prosecutors believed they had enough for convictions. One said in court, "The data shows motive or opportunity and coordination. It ties each man directly to the murder." The suspect stayed silent as detectives laid out the facts. They had the evidence. Now, they had to prove it in court. The courtroom was silent when the three men walked in. Kayvon, Warren, Lamar Suggs, and Robert Irvin. Porters filled the back rows. India's family sat together in the front, holding hands. Everyone wanted to hear how this young woman and her unborn baby ended up dead on what was supposed to be her delivery day. The prosecution wasted no time. They called it a planned execution. They laid out phone records, GPS maps, and the haunting surveillance audio where India's screams echoed through the courtroom. This was not random, the prosecutor said firmly. This was calculated, cold, and coordinated by the man she trusted the most. The defense pushed back. They hinted the evidence didn't prove who fired the shots or what Kayvon's exact role was. They said the calls and texts might be unrelated conversations, trying to raise doubt. But the timeline told a different story, one that made jurors shift in their seats. Then India's mother, Terry Kinamore, took the stand. Her voice shook as she described getting the call in the middle of the night, rushing to the apartment, and seeing police cars and flashing lights instead of her daughter holding a newborn baby. She told the jury about the surveillance audio, about hearing her child scream with each shot. She was supposed to have her baby that morning, Terry said through tears. Instead, I had to bury them both. Some jurors wiped their eyes. Even the judge paused before moving on. Prosecutors then revealed the messages between Kayvon and the others before the murder. One text hinted at timing. Another showed Kayvon reaching out right after the shooting. It wasn't just bad luck or wrong place, wrong time. The state argued Kayvon set it all up, Lamar as the shooter, Robert as the lookout and link between them. The defense claimed there was no direct proof. Kayvon gave an order to kill, but as the evidence piled up, the story prosecutors painted grew harder to deny. The jury leaned in when the judge announced one man was about to take the stand. What he said could change everything. The case had the whole city talking. On social media, people were angry. Some blamed Kayvon Warren alone. Others said the system failed India. Many asked why she didn't get help before things got this bad. Posts with her photos flooded timelines. Justice for India trended for days. People wrote about how women keep dying in abusive relationships while everyone stays quiet until it's too late. The debates turned ugly too. Some argued Warren was being painted as a monster before trial. Others asked why victims like India get judged for staying in dangerous relationships. Community groups organized vigils. Candles lit up the park where India used to jog. Friends told stories about her kindness. A few spoke about how she had tried to leave Warren more than once but felt trapped. The anger reached the courthouse steps. Protesters carried signs saying, "Protect women now," and "No more Indias." But then something came out in court that no one expected. The courtroom was packed. Family, friends, reporters, and strangers who followed the story filled every seat. After months of evidence, testimonies, and tears, it was time. The jury had reached a decision. One by one, the charges were read. Murder of India Kinamore. Murder of her unborn child. Conspiracy. Each man waited silently, eyes forward. Then came the word everyone feared and some expected. Guilty. Kayvon Warren, the father of the unborn child, was convicted on all counts. Lamar Suggs, the alleged shooter, also found guilty. Robert Irvin, the third man, guilty of conspiracy and accessory charges. There were gasps, tears, and quiet murmurs. Some people in the courtroom shook their heads in disbelief. Others nodded, saying justice had finally been served. The judge spoke firmly, reminding everyone that the lives of India and her baby were priceless. Taking a life is the most serious crime, he said, especially when it's planned, cold, and carried out against someone vulnerable. Kayvon received life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lamar got life with the chance for parole after decades. Robert Irvin received a long sentence, but with the possibility for early release due to his role being secondary. The courtroom was silent except for the scribbling of reporters and quiet sobs from India's family. Terry Kinamore spoke afterward. Her voice cracked but was strong. "I lost my daughter. I lost my grandchild. Nothing brings them back," she said. "But at least the people who did this cannot hurt anyone else." Family members hugged each other, some collapsing from the emotional weight. They had hoped for justice, but the pain didn't go away. Outside the courthouse, controversy raged. Some people argued Kayvon's sentence wasn't long enough. Social media exploded with posts questioning how someone could plot a murder of the mother of their child and walk even partially free. Others debated Robert Irvin's role. Should he have been sentenced as harshly as the others? Many thought he helped plan the crime and should pay equally. And there were those who criticized the justice system itself. Why did it take months for a trial? Why did evidence have to be so overwhelming before action was taken? It sparked a wider discussion about domestic violence, pregnancy, and how society often ignores warning signs until it's too late. News outlets highlighted the case across Ohio, the story of a mother and her unborn child being killed by someone they trusted went viral. The case became a reference point for discussions on abusive relationships. Organizations started campaigns warning about controlling partners and emphasizing the importance of early intervention, even after the verdict. Questions remained. What drove Kayvon Warren to plan this so meticulously? Could warning signs have been caught earlier? And most haunting, how many other families are silently going through the same nightmare? One thing was certain. This case wouldn't leave the community. It would continue sparking debates, outrage, and discussions on safety for women and children. Even after the courtroom emptied, India Kinnamore's story didn't end. Her death left a mark on her family, her friends, and the entire community. People struggled to understand how someone could kill the mother of their child, someone they claimed to love. Terry Kinnamore still wakes up thinking about what happened. She remembers the hospital bag packed and the nursery ready. She remembers the silence where there should have been cries and laughter. Losing India and my grandchild broke me in ways I can't explain, Terry said in interviews. I hope people learn from this, so it doesn't happen again. Family members continue to speak out about warning signs in abusive relationships and controlling partners. They hope sharing India's story prevents another tragedy. Local groups organized educational programs for young couples, focusing on healthy relationships and spotting red flags. Social media pages dedicated to India's memory continued to share her life, her dreams, and her hopes. People across Ohio follow them, posting messages like, "We won't forget her. We will fight for those who can't." Vigils and memorials have become regular events, reminding everyone of what was lost and why domestic violence awareness matters. The tragedy sparked debates about laws and protections for women. Questions arose. Could intervention have saved India? Should more support be available for women in abusive relationships? Some organizations pushed for tighter policies around domestic threats, digital tracking of abusers, and educational campaigns in schools and communities. India's death became more than a case. It became a rallying point for change. Even with the convictions, some questions remain unanswered. Why did Kayvon plan it so meticulously? Were there warning signs that friends, neighbors, or authorities missed? And how many other families are silently going through similar fear and control, never speaking out until it's too late? These questions haunt the community. They remind everyone that behind headlines are real people, real pain, and preventable tragedies. India's story now serves as a warning, a lesson, and a call to action. Her memory lives on in those fighting for victims of abuse, in educational programs, and in social media campaigns keeping her story alive. Even in tragedy, her life sparks conversation, change, and awareness. If you want to follow India's story from beginning to end, including the shocking courtroom moments, the evidence uncovered, and the ongoing fight for justice, subscribe now. Stay updated with every episode, and join the conversation to protect women, raise awareness, and never let another story like India's go unheard.